Tonight at 10, the German parliament approves government plans to join the military campaign against Daesh in Syria, and Hollande visits the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier in charge of intensifying strikes against the group. The World Food Programme warns that food supplies in Yemen are quickly deteriorating and the country is at risk of slipping into famine. And OPEC members failed to agree oil production ceiling after Iran says it will not consider any production curbs until it restores output scale back under Western sanctions. Good evening and welcome to the 10 o'clock news. His Majesty King Abdullah discussed with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel a number of regional and international issues, mainly the war against terrorism. In the telephone call, the two leaders also discussed the latest developments in Syria and means to address the Syrian crisis. They also affirmed their keenness to continue cooperation and coordination on various regional developments. Clashes erupted between Palestinians and Israeli security forces in the West Bank city of Bethlehem. Occupation forces fired stun and smoke grenades at Palestinian protesters who hurled stones in response. And in the West Bank city of Ramallah, a Palestinian was shot dead for allegedly stabbing and wounding an Israeli. And in a separate incident near the West Bank settlement of Ofra, a Palestinian was shot dead after Israeli forces said he rammed his car into soldiers. Israeli forces have killed 101 Palestinians in more than 2 months, 62 of which they claim carried out assaults. Germany's lower house of parliament approved government plans to join the military campaign against Daesh terrorists in Syria. Of the 598 lawmakers who took part in the vote, 445 voted for, 146 against, and 7 abstained. The mission will include sending 6 Tornado reconnaissance jets, a frigate to help protect the French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, refueling aircraft, and up to 1,200 military personnel. However, Germany will not join Britain, France and the United States and Russia in conducting airstrikes.
The threat is present. It's real. We know that Daesh has the means to attack planes, but we are prepared, equipped and trained. Our sensor technology actually permits us to fly at heights which expose us minimally to this threat. We are making a very meaningful contribution to the already existing reconnaissance systems because with our tornadoes we can make available highly detailed images of large areas in a very short period of time. That's an ability which doesn't exist in the region.
Welcoming the German parliament's approval of joining the intensifying fight against Daesh terrorists, French President François Hollande said this was another example of the solidarity between France and Germany. Hollande made the remarks as he visited the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier off the coast of Syria and met military personnel taking part in the operations. France deployed the Charles de Gaulle to the Eastern Mediterranean to bolster its operations against Daesh in the wake of the deadly gun and bomb attacks by the terrorist group in Paris on November 13. French warplanes have been bombing Daesh in Iraq for more than a year and in Syria since September. But it stepped up its bombing in Syria after the attacks on Paris 3 weeks ago that killed 130 people. The Charles de Gaulle is due to sail through the Suez Canal to the Gulf in the coming days to relieve the United States aircraft carrier in the region. It will remain at sea until March. And in the continued fight against terrorism, the US-led coalition carried out 26 airstrikes against Daesh terrorists since yesterday, targeting oil production in Syria and supporting the Iraqi effort to retake the city of Ramadi. A military statement said coalition aircraft carried out strikes against an oil field well near Abu Kamal and against an oil and gas separation plant near Deir ez-Zor. Dozen strikes against Daesh tactical units in 2 other Syrian cities were also conducted, while in Iraq, coalition aircraft carried out 6 strikes near Ramadi, which Iraqi ground forces are working to free from Daesh control. The strikes destroyed machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades and other weapons. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry released a video showing strikes on Daesh bases, a training camp and trucks carrying oil in Syria. The defense ministry spokesperson said Russia's air force flew 431 sorties and hit 1,458 terrorist targets in Syria in the week of November 26 until today. The ministry added that Russian jets hit targets in Aleppo, Idlib, Latakia, Hama, Homs, Raqqa and Deir ez-Zor provinces. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said it may be possible to get Syria's government and rebel forces to cooperate against Daesh terrorists without President Bashar al-Assad stepping down from power. Kerry added that for that to happen, opposition groups that have been fighting Assad must be confident there is a solution in sight regarding the Syrian leader's future. Kerry's comments mark a sharp change for the U.S., which has long insisted that Assad must step down for there to be any chance for a political resolution to the conflict in Syria. Kerry spoke during a news conference in Athens, announcing that the U.S. is giving $24 million in new money to help refugees as the European winter approaches.
The real solution to the refugee crisis for all of Europe is to bring the earliest possible end to the war in Syria. And that is precisely the work that I and others have been engaged in over these last weeks. The solution is to end the war. And the best way to deal with this crisis, as we have said again and again, is to make every step possible, as fast as possible, to bring about a ceasefire, get into the political discussion, and let Syrians decide the future of Syria through that discussion. That's our goal.
A Molotov cocktail held at a Cairo restaurant club killed scores. The victims died from burns or the effect of inhaling smoke. Initial police investigations found the perpetrators were potential customers who were denied entry after an argument with the club staff escalated to a fist fight. Officials said one of the attackers was identified as an employee who had been fired from the restaurant, but all remain at large. The attack happened in the Al Ajuza area in the city center. Here's more.
Investigators say it was an attack by a disgruntled former employee. They say the man had hurled a Molotov cocktail into the restaurant after an argument.
After that, these kids left, but came back later and threw the Molotov and set fire to the place.
There were staff and diners inside at the time. The flames spread quickly, becoming an inferno. At least 16 people were killed. The restaurant was located in a basement, so there was no escape route. Witnesses say they felt helpless.
I ran outside and saw the nightclub on fire. The flames were really strong. I then saw ambulances pull out around 16 bodies, 6 of which were women. It's difficult to tell if they'll survive or not.
2 others were injured in the blaze.
The United Nations World Food Programme has warned that food supplies in Yemen are deteriorating quickly and the country is at risk of slipping into famine. 10 out of Yemen's 22 governorates are now classified as facing food insecurity at emergency level, one step below famine. The fighting in Yemen has left more than 1 million people displaced. According to the 2016 Humanitarian Needs Overview in Yemen, last month, 14.4 million people of the country's 23 million are food insecure, struggling to get enough food to live a healthy life. This includes 7.6 million people in desperate need of food assistance.
Yemen is one of the hardest places in the world today to work. Massive security concerns, escalation in the fighting and the violence across the country. We are doing well, we are improving our reach and getting to more people every month, but clearly with half the country now just one step away from famine, we need the international community to really come behind us and support us, particularly over the next few months.
OPEC members failed to agree an oil production ceiling at a meeting in Vienna that ended in acrimony. after Iran said it would not consider any production curbs until it restores output scaled back for years under Western sanctions. Oil prices fell after news that the organization was planning to maintain its production near record highs despite depressed prices. A final statement was issued with no mention of a new production ceiling, apparently allowing member countries to continue pumping oil at current rates into a market that has been oversupplied. OPEC's Secretary General said the body could not agree on any figures because it could not predict how much oil Iran would add to the market next year.
Iran is coming. We don't know when Iran will come. So, and Iran, we have to accommodate Iran one way or the other. And also the production is changed from time to time. So we decided to postpone this decision to the next OPEC meeting until the picture will be more clearer for us to decide on a number.
U.S. President Barack Obama is being kept informed about a mass shooting in San Bernardino, California, as authorities try to determine if it was a terrorist attack. Obama summoned his national security advisor, his top counterterrorism advisor, his attorney general, the director of FBI, and the deputy director of Homeland Security to the Oval Office to get an update about what transpired. Wednesday's attack was the deadliest mass shooting the United States has experienced in 3 years, killing 14 and wounding 21. Meanwhile, there are conflicting reports as to whether the shooters have any connection with Daesh.
Again, there are significant resources, investigative resources that are being dedicated to getting to the bottom of what exactly transpired, to learning as much as we possibly can about the shooters, about their foreign travel, about their foreign contacts, about their use of social media, about their potential motives, and that work is well underway.
Italy's Mount Etna volcano burst back into life for the first time in 2 years, shooting kilometers of red lava into the sky. Mount Etna on the Italian island of Sicily shot into life yesterday, putting on an impressive display, spewing huge columns of fire, visible for tens of kilometers. Red-hot lava exploded into the night sky as the volcano rumbled back to life. Etna, at 3,330 meters, is the highest volcano in mainland Europe and the most active in the world. People in London look at the most miserable in their selfies, while strong smiles are found in Sao Paulo and Bangkok, says a researcher involved in setting up a London show about selfies. For its new exhibition, dubbed Big Bang Data, Somerset House has commissioned Selfie City London's a spotlight on 640 selfies selected out of a total 152,000 public Instagram images taken in a single week in a 5 square kilometer radius around the museum. Selfie City's 8-person lab compiles and analyzes selfies from around the world. Globally, the findings showed that every city is unique in its own peculiar way. But people taking selfies in London smiled the least and closed their eyes the most. By contrast, the highest percentages of strong smiles were to be found in Bangkok and Sao Paulo.
Actually quite cheerful faces, and what's special is they tend to tilt their heads quite a bit, either to the right or the left. If we jump to London now, just to contrast that, we can see to Sao Paulo, for instance, we can select it here on the map. We can see people actually have quite cheerful faces, and they tend to tilt their heads quite strongly when taking selfies. And in the software that we built, we can find all these patterns if we want. If we jump to London again, As I said, faces are much more composed, much more serious, and sometimes really straight up angry. And we don't know why that is. It might be a weather thing, it might be some other cultural difference.
Real Madrid have been thrown out of the Kings Cup after they used an ineligible player in Wednesday's last 32 first leg match at third-tier Cadiz. Real included Denis Cheryshev in their starting lineup for the match, and the Russia forward opened the scoring in his side's 3-1 victory, even though he should have been serving a one-match suspension. Cheryshev earned a third yellow card, which carries an automatic one-game ban, playing on loan at Villarreal in last season's cup. Real took him off at halftime when they apparently realized their error, but Cadiz filed an official complaint. Mike Fanning rode his way to a win at the Vans World Cup of Surfing at Sunset Beach in Hawaii. The Australian, surfing in waves 4 meters and higher, won the final 4-man heat with his 2 best rides, scoring an almost 9.87 out of 10. The win is the first for Fanning in Hawaii and places him as the favorite to win his 4th World Surf League title, heading into the Billabong Pipe Masters, the final event of the season. And finally, the weather outlook. Tonight will be very cold in most regions and chilly in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea, with a chance of frost formation, while winds will be easterly light to moderate. A further slight drop in temperatures is in the forecast tomorrow, marking 5 to 6 degrees below seasonal average. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a chilly night and relatively cold day tomorrow, with northerly winds and slightly choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end here our top stories once again. The German parliament approves government plans to join the military campaign against Daesh in Syria, and Hollande visits the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier in charge of intensifying strikes against the group. The World Food Programme warns that food supplies in Yemen are quickly deteriorating and the country is at risk of slipping into famine. And OPEC members failed to agree oil production ceiling after Iran says it will not consider any production curbs until it restores output scaled back under Western sanctions. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Lawal Balkar. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.